Okay, I think, yes, I'm on, and this is focusing on my face. Yes, it's focusing on my face. I'm getting things in focus, getting my audio going well. Has been a learning curve for me. Hi, my name is Renee. Welcome to my YouTube channel. You have stumbled into a video about career and work, specifically my work, my career, and some figuring out I am doing about that. As I stuck my head up out of this foxhole, I looked around and observed women with my age, at my life stage, and my kind of education, having a degree, and I saw that at least some of them had the rewards of a career, had affirmation, job well done feelings outside of their most intimate relationships, as well as the commensurate financial benefits of a career. Yay, you get money for this, and you are being recognized and valued by society having this job. So I saw that that was available. People were experiencing that. And then what I had was this small apartment of teenagers going through their regular teenage stuff, differentiating and distancing themselves from me and from the connection with their parents, because that's developmental stage. That's what you're supposed to do then. But that was also my work, what I had invested so much of myself into. So the people that I had been working for, whose development, whose growth, whose well-being was my job description, those people, they couldn't, and nor was it their place to reward my work. I'm producing a video series right now. This is one video in that series. In my previous two videos in this series, I was talking about career counseling. Actually, I was talking about the preparation I did in advance of career counseling, which was basically preparing a document to understand myself going into career counseling. I ended the last video in this series saying that my next video, which is this one, I would be discussing what the career counselor said to me. But I've wanted to summarize my master's degree experience. And this is actually a really good time to do it, because I've just been talking in my previous video a lot about that degree. It was a master's degree in educational studies. And I spent a lot of time in the last video talking about the field of education, my interest in education, and what brought me to my master's because of my interest in education. But there's a lot more to be said about my master's degree, and I want to make a summarizing video about it, a little bit as a way to close the chapter of that part of my life of doing a graduate degree. There's still a lot that's to be determined from that, but I do want to kind of close the experience for myself and say, this is what it was about, this is what it achieved for me, this is what I was hoping it would achieve, and this is also what I got from it that I wasn't expecting to get from it, and have a kind of a summarizing of my master's degree, my graduate degree experience. I am doing this video in the woods behind our house. Mosquitoes are an issue back here, but I have put on my bug spray in hopes that they won't bother me too much. The reason I'm braving the elements, or I should say the pests, to be out here to do this video is because there's just a lot happening at my home right now, and it's kind of hard and distracting to do a video there. My husband works from home, and we have an open concept home, and his office slash music studio slash workout room area is in the loft of our house, and it's open to the main floor. So I can't do any significant amount of recording during the weekdays in the main area of our living space. because it would either be overheard by my husband or he has meetings and what have you, and it's just awkward. So yeah, I'm not going to be in that space right now. And then sometimes I like to sit outside, but my dad has been building us a secondary woodshed. We'll have two now, and he's been building this, and he's just kind of wrapping that project up today. And so again, I don't want to be sitting making videos while he's out there doing things. I could also go into my office or my bedroom, but on such a beautiful day, I'm kind of wanting to be not in those closed-in spaces, and I just want something that's more visually interesting, quite honestly, like the woods, to be the backdrop to this video. So I'm here, and we will see how it goes with the mosquitoes. I'm going to structure this talk I'm doing and discussing of my master's degree as a response to two main questions. The first of those questions is, why did I do a master's degree? And the second question is, what, if any, is its value to me if it doesn't directly correlate to or get me paid work related to what I studied? To answer the first question, why I did a master's degree, there's several reasons why, and I've already spoken about a big reason why in my previous two videos. And that reason is I was hoping to build a bridge from my previous life experience and education to something in the future. And I'm in that future now. So it was to be this bridge. And I'm using the bridge metaphor to illustrate how I wanted to get from one shore to another shore, to a different place, or what was across this river or this lake or this body of water, something over there on that side. And I want to see if I can get there and even find out what is over there. The degree has been a bridge of sorts for me. I have reached a place that I could only see off in the distance before. I have reached another shore, so to speak. But at this stage, where I have reached is not well marked. It's not easily identifiable. I didn't get to that shore and it says, and you have now reached name of place, name of job, name of whatever this land is on this other side. It's not identified yet to me where I have landed. Certainly, I got across that body of water. Where did this bridge lead me to? To be determined. So I can check that one off the list. It has been a bridge. To what, I'm not exactly sure, but definitely I got across those waters. My other reason for getting a graduate degree is because I wanted to achieve an accreditation with a higher income earning potential. Voiceover Renee here. The word I'm actually looking for is credentialing or credential, not accreditation, which is the process that an institution goes through to be validated by some kind of external body. Just wanted to clarify. I have a Bachelor of Education degree from many years ago, and if I was to work in certain unionized or institutional structures, a master's degree puts me at a higher tier, I guess, a higher income earning tier than just having a bachelor's, especially because I didn't have standard work experience. Like I've talked about in the videos before, my work experience has been as a homeschooler, and I have much vocational work experience as a homemaker and writer and different things, but I don't have the, standard work experience out in the workforce, building a career. So having a master's is a way of, I don't know if it's like distinguishing myself amongst my peers or people that I would be competing for jobs for. And also certain jobs that I might be looking at would require or have preferential selection for people that also have a master's degree and not just a bachelor's of education. Especially, like I said, considering that my previous work experience up till now is not normal or standard. So it's just a way of, distinguishing myself and something to leverage in getting certain kinds of employment. And in some cases, it might have even been required. My third reason was because at one time I thought I would be looking for full-time employment. since that time, I have decided that part-time work will meet the needs that we have and is also the place that I want paid work to fit into the picture of my life. But at one time I was thinking I would be pursuing full-time work. And this was after years of being a homeschooler and a homemaker. If I was going to be working full-time, what I wanted was professional work. And a master's degree is another piece of the puzzle that can help you land and position yourself for professional work. Although I was thinking about full-time work, I also knew that even if I was doing part-time work, being able to do professional level type of work would potentially yield me higher pay than non-professional part-time work. That is not a straightforward proposition. It's not like a formula that's always true in our economy and in all the different places and situations in which people are employed and make money. There's lots of work that people do that pays very well and is not maybe considered in that professional realm. And I actually do have like a definition of professional work for you, just to kind of give you some context for what I mean by that. Professional work, I would define it as work that requires some kind of specialized education, training, and skills, is associated with formal credentials, for example, degrees, certifications, and licenses, and usually involves a higher level of autonomy, responsibility, and expertise. Lots of things would fall under this professional umbrella, and professional work in general, because of all these factors, because you have to exercise a certain amount of expertise and you need special training and all these different things, and yeah, you have a level of responsibility. It does pay better than other kinds of work. What I see most in my desire for professional work is I want work that affords me the autonomy that I've experienced in my vocations and also pays well. The other thing I think that attracted me and still does attract me to certain kinds of professional work is how it's tied in with using my intellect in values aligned ways. There's many ways that I can use my analytical mind and my just desire to synthesize and research and know and understand. Lots of different ways that can be used, obviously, but I want to use it in a way that aligns with my life values and my life philosophy, which I've talked about in the previous video. So that desire to exercise my intellect was also definitely part of what drew me to a master's degree, and the idea that I would be able to find work that exercised my intellect and that depended on me using that and honing that and bringing that to the table, bringing that to the work that I do. Not just that I have this particular skill set or I have these particular transferable skills, but that I'm a thinker and a deep thinker. And that is what the job requires and needs from me. And the way you develop that and the way you hone your intellect is by doing further study and like a master's degree. And it doesn't have to be in a formal credited type of way. I don't believe that. But that is certainly one way to develop your intellect and to develop those thinking skills is in a formalized program. So that certainly is part of what drew me to do this degree. Another reason for doing this degree is because I was in the right place and it was at the right time of my life to do it. I had finished raising kids, so it was a good time in my life to do this. And I lived in the right place to do it. A place that made it very easy, accessible, and relatively inexpensive. I used to live in Quebec, and specifically I lived in Montreal. And in Quebec, the cost of higher education, so post-secondary education, in many cases is very affordable, or more affordable than in other provinces of Canada. My costs for the whole program was $8,300 Canadian. This is a very reasonably priced master's program, and it was also from a really good school. It's not like I was paying less to go to a poor quality institution. It's a good school, and the price was very affordable. To recap why I pursued this degree, and what my thought process was going into it. There was, first of all, my ongoing and abiding interest in education and education philosophy and practices. This is something I love, I'm interested in, I want to study and pursue. So I did. It came from a desire and interest in the actual subject. There was this idea of building a bridge from my previous work to potential and future work. There was the desire to obtain a professional credential that would help me get better paying jobs in my field of interest, which is education. And I was in the right place at the right time in my life. I lived in a city with excellent schools and in a province with very affordable tuition. It was like a great opportunity for me to do this at this point in my life. So those were all the reasons that I was thinking as I went into it. And I had articulated all of these to myself in my decision making that went into, should I do this or should I not do this? That was the pros list for me. And there really wasn't any cons. The only con that I can see in my decision-making process might have been, is this the best degree to maximize my earning potential or to position me for a paid job, like upon completion of this? In which case I would say no. But I knew that going in, and I wasn't trying to maximize that. If I had been, then I would have done some program with some kind of certification that was maybe more technical or maybe more specific, that upon exiting, you work exactly in that thing. For example, like a dental hygienist or something where you're training, it's a technical type of work and you're training exactly for that job and you get that certification and then you get employed in that. So if I was trying to optimize or maximize for that, then that would have been a con in my decision-making process. But that's not what I was thinking primarily. The other thing that maybe would have been under the cons would have been the idea, is this the best use of my time and effort if I'm looking to maximize earning potential? Because there could have been other things I could have put my time into, perhaps building a business, some other thing that would yield higher financial returns, I guess. Because the cost of doing a program or, getting a further education, doing degrees, is not just the financial. It's the time that you spend doing that you could put into other things. And you'd be building then that other thing, which might yield you, would yield you something different, and it might be the thing that you actually wanted, or it might be better than what this thing yields you. But in choosing this program and choosing to go back to school and do a master's degree, I wasn't looking at it strictly through an economic lens, or looking at it to maximize or optimize the economics of it, which isn't to say there isn't possible economic returns from it. It's just that those weren't the driving factors in my decision making. And I'm going to touch on that a bit more later. When I went into the program, these were all of the reasons that I was saying, yes, I want to do this degree. But once I was in there and doing it, there were other benefits that came to me, and they were significant. So I'm going to talk about those now. But I really do have to get out of the bugs. I'm going to move locations, and then I'm going to talk to you about the benefits and the things that I was not looking for and I didn't even know I was looking for, that I ended up getting out of this experience. My dad finished working in our yard today, and he finished this structure that I'm in, which is the woodshed. one of our woodsheds. We have two now. So anyways, I can sit in here and it's perfect in terms of regulating the light and not having sunlight on my face or behind me or whatever, messing up with the recording. And I get to be outside, which is lovely. So this is good. And the best thing, there is not a bunch of mosquitoes around. And I get to be in the smell of freshly built wood stuff. I love the smell of new builds, new buildings, new wooden structures. Okay, so let's pick this back up. Now I want to talk about the things that I was not looking for and didn't even know I was looking for or even hoping to achieve that I got out of my master's program. So the first thing is grad school was an affirmation of my intellect, the value of my intellect and my intellectual abilities and interests after 2 decades of caregiving and reproductive labor. So I don't track the stats and research on this topic, though family policy and women's studies interests me greatly. I don't know the percentage of 4-year degree university educated women who choose to be homemakers or stay-at-home parents or homeschoolers. I did all 3 of those. But what I do know is that reproductive labor is undervalued in our society and pays poorly, if at all. I should really briefly define reproductive labor. I have bandied this term about in this video and in my other ones. Reproductive labor is the work, both paid and unpaid, that is involved in maintaining and reproducing, that's the reproductive part, reproducing the workforce and daily life. It's the work that goes into raising and educating future workers and everything that happens to support workers in the economy. The kind of activities that fall under reproductive labor are childcare, housework, meal preparations, emotional support, even having children, childbearing is a type of reproductive labor. I mean, which it sounds like it is, right? Reproductive. That's maybe the first thing that comes to your mind. Basically, the support of workers or the support and specifically raising of future workers. All of this is essential for sustaining individuals and society, and we need this work to be done, but it is very undervalued and overlooked. And reproductive labor tends to be very gendered. So these supportive, emotionally supportive roles, taking care of people who are working and making money, the raising of the next generation of workers. This is work that is frequently done by women, performed by women. And I have really appreciated the work of feminist scholars in highlighting the connection between how reproductive labor is so undervalued in our society and gender issues and gender inequality. So these things are all very connected. And I guess the assumption that I'm working from, and also like what I've observed in society, is that the more credentialed someone is, the more degrees they have, the more training and expertise they have in some kind of professional field, especially if you had to pay money to get those degrees or go into debt for those degrees, the less likely they are to work in the reproductive labor fields like childcare, for example, and in my case, pulling out of the workforce entirely, being not part of the workforce entirely to raise, educate our children, take care of a home, support my husband. If you have credentials that could get you some other kind of work that, pays money, then what you do is you pay somebody else to do that labor for you. So my work as a homeschooler drew somewhat from my Bachelor of Education training, but I didn't get any monetary reward from doing a Bachelor of Education. The reward for me and the outcome was not a monetary one from getting that first degree. So there was no payback for that degree, so to speak. The work itself was the reward. The work of caring for my kids, taking care of our home, homeschooling. I found great satisfaction in the work itself. And what I was doing for my family was the reward and was very satisfying for me. For me, this is the best kind of work. It's the work that is satisfying and rewarding in the actual doing of it. But that kind of work doesn't put food on the table, nor is there a pension, which is a big part of what I'm working towards now. Not the putting the food on the table, but saving for our old age, because I wasn't in the workforce for all those years. And now we have to prepare for the next stage of our life. The work I did in our home and with our children was very satisfying to me. However, when I got to the end of laboring for many years at work that was unrecognized, so this reproductive labor that was unrecognized and not valued in the way our society shows value, which is monetarily. So I got to the end of that work. I stuck my head up out of the foxhole of raising and homeschooling teenagers. And the raising and homeschooling teenagers, it happened concurrently with an early midlife faith and marriage crisis. We also ended up going through some financial difficulties. There was like a lot going on. As I stuck my head up out of this foxhole, I looked around and observed women with my age, at my life stage, and my kind of education, having a degree. And I saw that at least some of them had the rewards of a career, had affirmation, job well done feelings outside of their most intimate relationships, as well as the commensurate financial benefits of a career. So you have the financial aspect, the financial benefits. Yay, you get money for this. And you are being recognized and valued by society, having this job that does this certain important work in society. And you could be even recognized within the work itself, right? Climbing the ladder or reaching levels within the organization and being rewarded by that structure, as well as just being satisfied and rewarded by the work itself. So I saw that was available. People were experiencing that. And then what I had was this small apartment of teenagers going through their regular teenage stuff, as well as just hard life stuff, stuff in their lives and in ours. And lots of what they were going through was differentiating and distancing themselves from me and from the connection with their parents, because that's the developmental stage. That's what you're supposed to do then. But that was also my work, what I had invested so much of myself into. So the people that I had been working for, whose development, whose growth, whose well-being was my job description, those people, they couldn't, and nor was it their place to reward my work. It's not our children's responsibility at that stage of their life to reflect upon and make me feel good about my work as their mother, as their homeschool parent. That's just not their responsibility or role. Related to this, as a parent, you can't use the success of your children as the measure of your own success, which is doubly complicated when homeschooling. And you can't blame somebody else out there, the school, for failures. Oh, the school failed them. Oh, this thing. It's pretty much all on you. The variables in human development and individuals' interaction with culture and society make defining success very muddy. I don't like to use the word very often, and whenever I do use the word, I'm always seeking to define what I mean by success. So in the case of raising children and homeschooling children, is success defined as graduating from high school? Does it mean that they're living independently? Does it mean they got into university? And what if those are not possible because of an individual's capacities? And another thing to consider is the cultural context and how the context that we are living in right now might necessitate much longer runways for launching as an adult. Are there things in our cultural context that preclude some of the old metrics we might have used to define success altogether? I think specifically here about the cost of living and how difficult it is to get out on your own. So if you can't get out on your own, and if it's just not possible because of the economic context you're in, that definition or that metric of success just might not even be possible, or it might not be possible until a much later stage. This is why this idea of success and defining success and saying you're successful as a homeschool parent or as a parent in general, it's very tricky. And I don't speak in those terms. I'm saying all of that to illustrate how, as a homeschooler who didn't have a paid side gig or even a main gig, some people have work and careers and also homeschool. I did not. I didn't have external rewards for my work, and I didn't have anything external to my family that was rewarding and affirming me. And then there was a period of financial strain and stress in our family, and our marriage had recently gone through its own crisis. Oh, and then there was a pandemic. Those years, there was kind of this series of events that were not exactly like the best of times, right? All of which contributed to a feeling that I was like crawling out of the experience of homeschooling our kids and raising them. Like, it felt like I was crawling on my hands and knees out of the woods. And I was scratched up, and I was feeling kind of beaten down. And I've actually written about this in a blog post entitled "As I Drag Myself Out of the Woods," and I'll leave a link to that below. But this was the emotional and mental state that I was in when I started grad school. My self-confidence had reached an all-time low in my early 40s, and there was roughly like an 8-year stretch there where I went through the losing of it and then the slow kind of trying to rebuild it. And it was grad school that lit my fire again and restored my confidence in the decision making and the path that I had been on for the last 20 years as a homeschooler and a homemaker. And I also wrote a blog post about that. I think it's entitled "The Year I Find My Fire" or something like that. There'll be a link to that post in the video description also. Grad school introduced me to feminist scholars, researchers, and philosophers who theorized, conceptualized, and published about reproductive labor. Before I started grad school, I don't know if I had heard that term, maybe, but it wasn't top of mind for me. And as an intellectual person, like a deep thinking person, I was affirmed by these influences, as well as being able to gather and learn a whole vocabulary for thinking about my own work and the value of my work. So just to illustrate some of my learnings and my processing from that learning, I wrote this in that blog post about finding my fire. An underlying sense of the not enoughness of the vocation of motherhood and homemaking in our culture is not just because of the financial imperative to seek work outside the home. It's an internalization of capitalist economy-driven values that stand in contrast to values of communal care and well-being. Homemaking and mothering is work that is built on the value of communal care and well-being. And I didn't feel affirmation for this work or these values from society at large, but I did get affirmation for that in my grad school scholarship, which is kind of funny and which was completely unexpected for me. Related to this, grad school gave me the tools to critically examine culture and society. It gave me a language and framework to express what had been going on in my life. As a person who reflects on my life and who thinks about my life and who talks about my life, all of this was really important. Like, to understand better, to articulate better, to have tools to examine things better. I valued all of that so much. And my coursework, so what I was reading and writing and the conversations I was having in my classes, my immersion back into education philosophy and education scholarship reminded me why I homeschooled in the first place. What I was studying in my program, because I was studying education, and my ability and competence in the work, the exercising of my intellect, and then also being rewarded for my intellect in terms of grades and feedback, like being affirmed and rewarded for the kind of thinking that I enjoy doing. All of that built me up after feeling like I had been, if not torn down, at least very worn down through those years leading up to my grad studies. Yeah, I just felt like built up again, and like I was being built up again. I had a philosophy of education. I have one, but I reflected on the fact that I had a philosophy of education and I had spent the last 20 years practicing it. I had done something. Well, my classmates talked about what could and couldn't be done in the school system. Many of them were classroom teachers, and we'd sit around and discuss, and we would reflect on the ideas, and we'd be like, oh, well, we couldn't do that. We couldn't do that in the school system. We can't think about things that way. I could talk about and share and reflect on my lived experiences of actually doing something in line with my philosophy outside the system, because I had been outside the system. So I had done something about what I believed in. I had practiced a type of education that I believed in. So the affirmation of my intellect, the valuing of my labor, and my own satisfaction with doing education according to my values and philosophy was incredibly rewarding and satisfying. And acquiring a language for how I see and experience society was invaluable to me. So I've always had these feelings and these intuitions and these feelings of disconnect and critique, and why is the world this way, and why do I not fit in that, and what's going on here? That kind of feeling, like, what is going on here? I've always been thinking that. In grad school, I acquired a language to help me express and understand it, where I just didn't have the words before. I didn't have the concepts. And now I do. And that doesn't mean I have them all or I know everything. There's multiple ways of looking at things, and I have certain frameworks that I look at things through. And there is more to learn, and there is even alternative ways of looking at things that would be in contradiction to how I look at things and analyze things, and even the scholarship that I draw from. So I'm not saying I know it all. I have a sense in myself of knowing, understanding, and being able to articulate so much more than I used to be able to. I grew intellectually, professionally, as related to having been a homeschooler, and creatively. I furthered the work that I've already been doing for years as a writer. For example, writing my philosophy of education. I also published an article in a journal on self-directed education and neoliberalism. That was satisfying to me as a writer, like as a person who's been writing and blogging for so many years. To be published was really meaningful and very satisfying. So I have to say or conclude from all of this that grad school's contribution to my growth as a midlife woman, writer, mother, former homeschooler, thinker was invaluable to me. I just feel like I gained so much. I feel like I could be the poster child for the value of a graduate degree at midlife, though not for the reasons that schools usually want to advertise and highlight to prospective students who are primarily concerned with employability and credentialing for employment purposes. So one of the funny things for me in thinking about all this is that there is this irony here in the fact that I have a life philosophy, a way of doing things and looking at things that runs contrary to dominant ideologies in our culture, or at least prioritizes things differently. But then I reach this point in my life where I feel bad that the society doesn't honor or recognize the work that I've done. So it's kind of ironic. I can't look to the society and the culture that I have been critiquing, also disdaining at sometimes, basically trying to hold at arm's length. I can't do all of that and also be like, oh, but why don't you recognize me? It's kind of funny. That's all I'm saying. I recognize the irony of that. I'm getting really warm right here. The sun is kind of baking on me, so I'm gonna move one more time and finish this video up.